Well, my guest tonight is Mr. Mmusi Maimane. He's the leader of the DA. And in politics, notwithstanding the fact that politicians get to kick each other around, and thereafter I'm told they go and have lunch together or have drinks together. I'm not sure if that is true, but sometimes it can be extremely ferocious, right?
Sure.
How do you rate the performance of Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa compared to former President Jacob Zuma? And over time, what has your relationship been like between the two of them? I mean, after all, Mr. Ramaphosa was deputy to Mr. Zuma.
Sure. And I think, as I said earlier on, I thought that in his first 100 days, he achieved what I call a 6 out of 10. And I'll tell you why. Because I think there should have been some deliberate actions that reform the state. On the first, I thought he should have taken a decision to cut the cabinet. Today, our people at home are paying an additional 1% VAT, an increase in fuel, etc., etc. We should have halved the cabinet as a first act. We should signal that state-owned enterprises need desperate reform. So in other words, let's take a reform and ensure that there's something like SAA, we should be putting up equity partnership to it because our people have to pay for it. And so I thought the president had an opportunity to make some bold reforms because in the beginning of your career, your capital is fairly high, and so now you need the change. There are some things that I've welcomed. I think that the president has certainly gone out to reach out to other people. So from a relational point of view, as I said to him earlier, I said, when we are committed to reforming South Africa, he will have my support. But what I will not support him is in bringing ANC compromises for the purposes of the state. I think there's a problem. That's why I won't support him in the Section 100 issue, whilst even though I said the Northwest needs urgent intervention, if it's a political exercise, I'm not interested in it. He's not going to work to save the ANC and South Africa. I think his greatest difficulty is to say, let's put South Africa, let's put South Africans first, then we can have a discussion.
And what about President Zuma? How was your relationship with him? I mean, he's now appearing before the courts without state help, and you are going to be blamed for that.
Thankfully, because I've always felt that Jacob Zuma must be held accountable. What President Zuma did to South Africa and what the ANC did in protecting President Zuma cannot be something we ignore. He evaded accountability in his personal sense. We spent millions trying to make sure he gets to court. Now the ANC helped him fund his state case by ensuring that they pay his legal fees. We oppose that because we oppose corruption. It doesn't matter by who or where, and I think our record speaks for itself. And so even in my relationship with Mr. Zuma, I've always told him directly, we will seek to hold you accountable as I would anybody.
And as I said, you know, how did he relate to you? During the time he was president, did you have cordial relations with him? Or
we did. I mean, I have respect for anyone who's elderly.
Yeah.
I certainly am not one of those who... I grew up in a fairly traditional home where we give respect. But he knew, I always gave him respect, but he knew I'd never be shy away from being tough against him. And we had our disagreements. We had days where he wouldn't even greet me when he came to Parliament, and we had days where he would greet me. But it's a normal relationship.
I want to look at the overall performance of the government, the national government, right? What do you regard as the best or better performing department or area within government and the worst performing area in government? And I'm asking you this question against the backdrop of having spoken to the health ombud recently,
Correct.
Which led to the press conference by the Minister of Health. And of course, we see the increase in the cash in transit heist. It's not the government that's committing those crimes, but we would like to see government response in dealing with things that that concern us, especially in the case of safety and security.
Sure. I think if I was to pick a department that's performing well, I'd say Treasury has done its job in the Ministry of Finance, in the parameters that's been given. Because remember, they're responsible for collection of revenue, but also making sure that there's accountability as speaks to the Auditor General, etc. That's been the only aspect. As far as the departments that I thought have had I think health is a crisis in our country. I think the police. But Tim, we can't be living in a country where people are being murdered in farms and murdered in townships. And for a country that's not at war, our murder rates are exceptionally high. So the police have not performed. Our education sector, as much as we've improved access over the last number of years, when you disaggregate Model C schools, you take them out, the education that is left for everybody else is comparable to the worst in Africa, even without the money problem. So When you then put those and you say, it's no wonder our economy is not performing. It's no wonder we're not having a labor that is employable. And I think when you look at the economics cluster, it's cumbersome. You've got a Ministry of Small Business, Labor, all of those. They all cluster together, and there's no policy coherence. So for me, I think we must make life simpler. Let's have between 18 to 20 ministries, narrow it down. That's the plan I want to put before South Africans. And then say, furthermore, let's focus on certain cities, let's deconcentrate, let's break down certain SOEs, we don't need many of them. And then furthermore, be able to say, when we look at our education sector, how do we involve private sector engagement so that we're better at delivering education?
I have to get a response from you on the increasing the rate of the cash in transit heists is alarming at this time.
It is.
What do you think?
In part, I think it's a failure of our Ministry of Intelligence. People cannot be coming in our country, or it doesn't matter where they come from, domestically or wherever, that they come in and commit crimes, and we simply don't have the intelligence to not only predict, but know who these people are. I want for intelligence to come down to provinces, work with the other arms of government, so the provincial police, the metro city police, and let's go out and find these people and do whatever we can to ensure that if anyone is involved in such crimes, that they can be brought to book with urgency. But it requires that we take national intelligence and bring it to the ground. Because otherwise, if we just sit, these are going to be happening everywhere. They seem to be coordinated. They require much better intelligence than what they are.
Well, let's take the final question from Tando.
Hello there, my name is Tando Hlope from Randburg. I would like Mmusi to give us ithakazelo zaka Maimane. We've seen the politician in you, but we want to see a different side.
But Tim, you know, as South Africans know, I come from a mixed home. My mother is Xhosa from the Eastern Cape. So ekhaya sengwakwamaduna, abakwasidloyi, osjegulu, odiba. So that's on the one side. And then my father, ke Motswana, re tswa ko Phokeng, Ribina Phuti. So those are brought.
Phokeng.
Hey.
Bakwena or Muphuti.
Hey, Bakwena.
Okay.
Hey.
All right. Well, Mmusi, thank you very much for talking to us. But you know, how do you see the future? Elections are coming up. Very briefly, this is not election campaign time yet, but yeah.
This election is going to be about, let's talk about the future of South Africa. I want a future for our kids. I'm sure all South Africans do. So we're going to talk about one South Africa for all, that black people, white people, colored people can work together. And talk about how do we create work for our people. Want to ensure that our citizens are safe. And ultimately, more than anything, we want to ensure that South Africans will know that in this country, they will be empowered, educated. And I want our kids to learn technology so that they are resilient for the future.
Mmusi Maimane, thank you very much for visiting us and talking to us.
Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for watching the Modise Network, and be sure to join us next week, Saturday at 6 p.m. and good night to you.